approve of this message.
It's 8:36. You're listening to the 8 o'clock buzz on WORT. This is Brian Standing. For the second year in a row, the Sequoya branch of the Madison Public Library and the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets seeks to beat the heat with a summer poetry festival. On June 28th, the library will host a dozen poets from around the state reading from their work. We're joined in the studio now by James Roberts, Vice President of the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets. Welcome, James.
Thank you for having me on the show, Brian.
Also joining us is Erica Hughes, a polymath author of several philosophical treatises about the nature of time and space, a science fiction novel, Sixth Iteration, and her latest work, a poetry chapbook, Digital Smiles. Erica joins us by phone. Welcome to the 8 o'clock buzz.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
James, let's start with you. How long has the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets been around?
It's been around since 1950, so we celebrate our 75th anniversary this past weekend with a conference at the Concourse Hotel here in Madison.
75 years. That's impressive.
75 years.
And what exactly does the Fellowship of Poets do?
It supports poetry all around the state of Wisconsin, having workshops, conferences, has its own magazine, and membership. We have about 500 members statewide there.
And tell us about the Summer Poetry Festival. It's the second year you've done this at the Sequoia Library.
Yes, this is an outgrowth of the annual Winter Festival of Poetry, which is a 6-week-long series of poetry readings held mid-January to mid-March on Sunday afternoons, where 6 poets each week get to read. So there's 48 poets reading. But it's become so popular that I've run out of spots for people who want to read, and so I decided to have the Sequoia Summer Festival of Poetry to give those poets an opportunity to read without having to wait for another year.
So much demand. You gotta expand the offerings. Yeah,
and it's worked out great so far.
All right. And Erica, I want to turn to you. I'm interested in how someone who writes about things like physics and science fiction, how did you expand into poetry? And which came first? Did you start as a poet, or did you start in writing some of these other in these other genres?
Well, I started with poetry in the 1980s, and, it just kind of progressed over the years through my teens. And in the 90s, I had some poetry published, and then that grew into short stories, screenplays, fiction novels. I have over 20 works, published works. And so I went to the fiction and then the nonfiction novels. So actually, those writings, those philosophical writings, they came last. My latest poetry book is Space, Time, and Loneliness, and it kind of brings those worlds together, the poetry and the kind of philosophical aspect of everything that I've been doing.
And it seems from your titles that you have an interest in science. Is that correct? Is that a theme through your work?
I would say that science is a part of it, but it's mostly philosophy, and a lot of philosophy embodies things about the universe, the cosmos, space, and time. So I would be considered a metaphysics philosopher, and so part of our study and our area of experience is, the universe and consciousness and a lot of those metaphysical subjects.
Do you have a poem for us now?
I do. I have lots of poems, and I was thinking, which one would be appropriate to read. And so I will just read from the latest book, which is Space, Time, and Loneliness, which is really about facing my mortality. As each poetry book has been a phase in my life, the youth into my 20s, then Digital Smiles, which was released last year, and then Space, Time, and Loneliness, which was released in October on my birthday. And so this is just about understanding that, as George Harrison from the Beatles once said, all things shall pass. And so it's just kind of reconciling that part of my existence. And so I would say that I'll just it's really just thinking about family and what we leave behind. So I'll just read, I Pray We Meet Again. which isn't so much about religion because, when we think of prayer, we think of religion, but that's often a part of our journey too. But this is about moving forward and our families and what we leave behind. And I'm a poet that rhyme. I write 3 verse 2, but this is a rhyming poem. I pray we meet again. I say goodbye to the life I knew, whisper goodbye to all of my friends. As I bid our love adieu with a prayer that we'll meet again. I pray we meet in the sunshine. I pray we meet in the rain. I pray we meet in springtime in a meadow that never ends. I pray our meeting is beautiful, that our love can begin anew. I say goodbye to my loving family with a promise to return to you. Let us meet in a future life. It matters not how or when. My love is unbound by time or space. I pray we meet again. I could part with material things. I could part with the life I knew. I could part with my material self, but I cannot part with you. I pray our meeting is beautiful, that our love can begin anew. I say goodbye to my family with the love I cannot subdue. Let us meet in a future life. It matters not how or when. My love is unbound by time or space. I pray we meet again. And that ends it.
All right. Erica Hughes, thank you very much. It's a lovely poem. James, I want to turn back to the Sequoia Summer Festival of Poetry. You've got your featured poet for this year's festival is Derek Harriel.
Yes.
Tell us about Derek.
Well, I first met Derek about a dozen years ago at the Woodland Pattern in Milwaukee, where he was reading, and I asked him to be a Winter Festival of Poetry reader then, but he moved down to Mississippi and became a professor there, and then recently moved back to Milwaukee. And so I'm very happy to get Derek, and this is very special because one of our other readers is former Wisconsin Poet Laureate Marilyn Taylor. Derek was a student of Marilyn's when Marilyn taught at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. So this will be the first time they will meet in about 25 years.
Oh, wow. That'll be fascinating, paying it forward. And then, Erica, why are poetry readings like this important for practicing poets? How does this help with your craft?
Well, it gives us an opportunity, of course, to share our works. They say that poetry is kind of a dying art. Poetry is dead, and it shows that poetry is very much alive. It has a lot of readers and listeners and people who are still writing poetry today. So it just gives us an opportunity to come together as a community and share our art with other people. And so it's just incredibly important to have that network and that community there, just to get the word out.
Have you met the other poets that are attending this festival?
I have not met them yet, and I'm really excited to. This is my second year as a member, and last year I came in right after, as a member, after the event had already passed. So this will be my first year at the festival.
All right. Well, the Free Summer Poetry Festival takes place at the Sequoia branch of the Madison Public Library on Saturday, June 28th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. For more information, you can go to madisonpubliclibrary.org. James, Erica, thank you both for joining us on the 8 o'clock buzz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with cellist Trace Johnson coming up right after this.